Janice, if you asked me if I wanted to do it all over, and I think this is a lesson for all coaches out there, I would have gone with Carol Cars, the late Carol Cars, because she would have been a great mentor. Mm-hmm. Because there's no way that any coach that's been coaching can't have a mentor or a role model that can help them through tough times. It's impossible. It's impossible.
This is the Leave It Better podcast, powered by the Side Out Foundation. Here's your host, Hall of Fame coach, Janice Kruger.
Today, my guest is Ruth N. Nelson. I'm not sure what that N stands for, but I see it all the time, Ruth. This is a quote you have. Dreams become a reality when you decide to believe in yourself. What a great quote. I don't know if you remember it, but I found it, and it's connected to you. Ruth is a friend of mine and has been. I've been admiring her for my entire career. Ruth was a former U.S. team member. She's a teacher. She's been a coach at the collegiate, international, and professional levels. I think it's hard to find anybody that can match her energy. She's always in the mindset of, looking forward, which doesn't mean that she doesn't keep track of history. And she might be one of our greatest assets in the sport of volleyball that has so much history that she can speak about and bring to light for our sport. So welcome to the show, Ruth.
Wow. I've been waiting and trying to figure out now what about this show is the most important thing. And I almost feel like I'm at the beginning of it.
Yeah.
Hey, when you do over 700 of these, just think what it's going to be like. But, I appreciate you asking me on. But, what's funny is before you get started, I had one thing. One of our former colleagues, Stephanie Schluter, who passed away, University of Minnesota, but also at University of Alabama when I was at Houston, she sent me a book. And I want to, if I may, it's only 3 sentences. It says, treasure the journey. Before your mind skips to the trials and tribulations that you may face today, or the fact that today your life might not be what you had expected or hoped for, take the time to repeat these words to yourself. Today, I will treasure the journey. So I am going to treasure this journey today. Thank you, Stephanie Schluter, for that book.
Yeah. And thank you for being on. I'm definitely treasuring this in my life today. I'm going to go way back because I think a lot of our women that were some of the first volleyball coaches that really took this as a profession were amazing athletes. And I think you qualify for that. I think your first love may have been tennis. And I remember back in the day, tennis and the hop and the positioning and the overhead smash and all those things were key, right? They still are today. But you were a 5-sport college athlete. Good God. We catch it today, maybe 2, 5. So volleyball, tennis, softball, basketball, and craziness, field hockey. You had a stick. I'm not sure that was so safe.
Well, you mean safe if you're around me or not?
Yeah, right. So, Ruth, you spent time as a collegiate coach at the University of Houston, at LSU, at the University of Iowa. Your first professional connection was in Major League Volleyball in their beginnings. And you also, and this is another big part of your journey that we can talk about a little bit today, is the Special Olympics International and your work there with Eunice Kennedy Shriver, who was the founder of Special Olympics. You were, as I mentioned, a part of the U.S. national team. The history of this is the women's national team tours that you did back in the day to bring volleyball to all of us. And I was a part of being able to have that come through in Nebraska, I believe. and you coached the first pro league volleyball, the Dallas Bells.
Uh-huh.
Gosh, those names, I don't know. It reminds me of wearing a dress to compete in sports. And then you started a nonprofit, and it's called the LVC, to help inner city girls volleyball clubs.
Yeah.
Huge thing. And we'll talk about that, so you can mention some of the things that you were bringing to light with that program. Mm-hmm. And I think, names that I associate with you that were key role models for me. Flo Hyman is one. I actually took a picture of her, that one where you see her with her arm extended and she's spiking. And I created a iron-on a T-shirt that I used to wear to my practices. Rose Majors, Powell, Danielle Scott, Ruda, and Ruth Lawson, Penny Lucas White. These are all people that may have been a part of your LVC program, or just bringing in the clubs. I guess I'm going to maybe stop here because I'm getting so far into this and I have more. Team Flow, your work with Special Olympics, writing the training guide for coaches about traveling, developing volleyball, which helped the sport of volleyball become one of their top sports worldwide. What a huge undertaking. I've read somewhere where you had some role models at your time. Dr. Jim Coleman, I absolutely know, and I know he was a part of your college experience. Mary Jo Pepler. I remember competing at Princeton and writing home a postcard to my parents saying, "You wouldn't believe Mary Jo Pepler is here, and she's the world's greatest player." Marilyn McGreevy, the late Marilyn McGreevy. And then another person I just admire is Ari Selinger. And I believe you worked with him.
Yes.
With the national team. And these coaches are your mentors. I think maybe helped you become an innovator. Like, they didn't try to put you in a box, and they kind of maybe groomed you to be someone that brought, you're not a follower, you're an innovator. And I think that's held true for your entire life to this date. So welcome to the show. I hope we can go back and we can talk about some of these things, because I'm rattling on here about all the things that were so wonderful that you've done.
Absolutely. Great introduction, of so many things. I was trying to think, okay, how do you summarize? I always like to say, I used to go to my doctor and he used to say, "Okay, Ruth, how old are you?" And I was 30, and I go, "I'm 20. He said, "Okay." Yeah. And then I'd go back and I was 40. He said, "How old are you?" And I said, "I'm 30. And every time I'd go back, I would go in a new doctor, and they would say, "Okay, when were you born?" And I said, "How old are you?" And I said, "I don't know how old I am. Don't tell me how old I am. I was born in this year. Don't even talk about my age. You don't ever see my birth date online."
You know what, Ruth? I scoured. I'm telling you, scoured. And I tried to bring some things together, but you have had a beautiful, long, and still amazing career in helping our sport grow, innovate. And I'm so thankful for you in it.
Well, thank you. Okay, so
let's talk about some things, all right?
So I almost say we're going to go on this journey together. And so I was thinking of, where do you start and how do you get started? And where was it? Well, my brothers played basketball. My sister played tennis. And in high school, you remember, during this time, but you were still young, we had Girls Athletic Association, which was GAA.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so the only interscholastic sport we had at the time was tennis. And so my sister was first singles and I was second singles. And then we were first doubles team. And then I played mixed doubles. So we played all of that. And actually, had I won my last match, we would have played Billie Jean and her brother in a tournament. So that's, when you start, and then I played on the 8th grade basketball team, and I was the only person in the neighborhood that had a basket on the garage. And so all the guys played, and I always was the quarterback because I said, "You better protect me." And so I learned that arm swing, for football. And then you jump into that. And then I think one of the most important part of just that, and I won't emphasize that too much, and that is I had a counselor that said, Ruth, you'll never go to college. You'll never probably even graduate from high school. And you definitely won't ever be a teacher.
Oh,
and
God.
I never forgot that. And I ended up applying to 3 or 4 colleges. And, at the time, it was physical education, right? Because
right.
You don't become a coach unless you want to be a physical educator. And to be honest with you, the late Rosemary Fry was my advisor at University of Northern Colorado. That was one of the schools that I had gotten into. And I remember, because step back a minute and say, I was born in a 1-room house, dirt floor, no running water. 8 in the family. All right.
Oh my God, I did not know that.
No.
8.
Okay. So now, that's because I'm 50 now, so I'm going to tell that story.
Okay.
Okay. So then my mom puts me on I borrow a suitcase from a family member, because I didn't have a suitcase. You're living in a small town in Beaumont, California. She put me on a train to Colorado. I'll never forget. I had pork and beans, and some viewers will know what pork and beans are. I had fried chicken, and I had it in a brown paper bag. That was what I ate on the train to Colorado. So I jumped to Colorado, and here I am. And now I have a very strict, you got to remember, physical education. In the 60s, you wore all white shirt, white. You had to wash them. You had to iron them. You never wore shorts to class. You always wore a trench coat. And then all of a sudden I'm saying, I just want to go to college because I want to be a coach and I want to be in the gym. And then I had Rosemary Fry, who is my volleyball coach and tennis coach, a separate, softball coach and a separate field hockey coach. And, we're in a quarter system. So you think about going through this quarter system. And the fact is, I don't want to go to class, right? But you had to go to class, I wanted to just be a coach. And so she would always tell me, well, you're not going to graduate, I mean, I actually was inducted into the Hall of Fame at University of Northern Colorado, and I got a chance to go back after like 30 some years. And she passed away just this last year. And she picked me up at the airport. And, when I came back, and she goes, do you remember things about me? And I said, oh, yeah, I remember things about you. You told me I wouldn't graduate. You told me I'd definitely not get a master's degree. And you told me I definitely wouldn't go any further except in tennis, because I was ranked, like second in Intermountain, which is like 6 or 7 states in tennis. And my former doubles partner went and played Wimbledon.
Okay. All right. So you were pretty good.
Well, no, I don't know about that. That I'm only giving you the ranking. I'm not telling you anything, but you run the ranking. But you go through that and you have a structured environment. And she would always say to me, and I'll never forget this, you had to take every class, every individual sports class, every team sport, gymnastics, modern dance. We had to do them all. And you had to teach them, and you had to officiate in all of them. So all the sports, kinesiology, anatomy, almost a double major in psychology, because I was taking graduate level courses when I was an undergraduate. But yet I don't really want to go to class. So, I didn't make good grades the first quarter. I was the only freshman that made all those varsity teams. And I was happy about that, but I didn't make very good grades. So second quarter, I bumped it up to I went from a 1.86 to a 2.86. And then, college after that was okay because I understood it. But she would say to me, Ruth, I don't understand it. She goes, I ask everybody in the class to analyze skills, and you can do it in 5 minutes. Yeah. You can analyze this skill, And you know what, Janice, I think everybody has a gift. And what Simone Biles says, it's a superpower. Somebody asked me, Ruth, do you have some gifts personally? And I go, yes. I think my gift and my superpower is that I love helping people, because I knew when I was a kid that I saw an older person walking and they were struggling walking or with their groceries, that I would go and I would not only pick up the groceries, but I'd carry the groceries back to their house. You talk about role models and mentors. You cannot survive in a sport or anything as long as I have, you're much younger than me, but as long as I have, unless you have role models and mentors.
And, for the longest time, I don't think when I was sort of searching your background, I didn't realize that setting was your specialty and that you were very, very good at it. I don't know what I thought you were, but, I didn't have the barrow then, because I know you weren't the tallest of any group here, but
I jump pretty well. Ari would always tell me, he goes, Ruth, when you get in, the offense works better, but he says, he wanted me he'd jump higher. I was jumping 28 inches. But what's funny about that, if you really think of that, I trained with Kenneth Allen, which was Jim Coleman's team. Mick was a setter. Tom Bierman was a setter. And then a lot of the other guys you want to know. You would know Jerry Angle, though, because he was the first Northwestern coach in Chicago. Yeah. And it wasn't the Big Ten and all that, But the one I trained with him every day. And you know how I learned to set in all different positions? Jim had me go to Kmart, get a plastic volleyball like you're going to play in the pool, go into the chem lab, take one of those big old hypodermic needles, put it in and push water into it. And the ball was half full of water. So what it did was, when it came into your hands, it made you stabilize your hands so that you could set in all different positions. In Jim's system, the 7-point system was established by Jim. Yeah, and then it became the 9-point system. And then I took that system because it was sophisticated. And I used to be able to set men this, back this, this, go 31 this. And, it was a men offensive system. And it was fun because you never had to ask a player to jump higher because the men always jumped high. But, but Jim was, you think he was my first role model in the sense of mentor, besides my college advisor, and that said I would never graduate with my master's degree or, college or whatever. But I graduated with almost a 3.86, in master's.
You remember that?
No, I remember because everybody said there's no way I'd finish college.
Okay.
But Jim's, his whole idea was I never heard him ever say in his life a negative word about anybody.
I love Jim Coleman. I took a lot of classes, or I guess, I don't know if they're clinics or whatever they were back then. And actually we as college or as coaches, we would go to clinics or camps for days at a time. And he was such a positive influence on so many.
We used to have the big clinics at George Williams College, and it was in that arena that had all the windows, right? You could never see. If you wanted always, when you flip the coin, make sure you get on the right side because you couldn't see. I mean, it was like 25, I don't know how many feet high, but you can't put any any curtains on them. And the thing he would do is, and this kind of built on, we talked about the analyzing of skills. Yeah. You would take the big old TV and you would take the VCR and you would cart it to the court. You would record the session. And we analyzed during that coaching clinic. And I'll never forget this. There was, and Rose Major's pal, who started for the 84 Olympic team, also played for me at Houston, then went to LSU with me. She would say to me, I said, you remember this? She goes, I don't need to remember it, Ruth. You remember it. Don't you have those pictures? Can you send me those pictures that were there? It was like, okay. I'm supposed to.
You became everybody's encyclopedia, library.
When he first started with the antennas, should they be a ball linked out or in? That was Jim in that. When he started the rally scoring, Jim was the innovator in that. And,
he was. I didn't realize that.
All of that, all this stuff that had to do with the early days. And it's really sad because I do think there are groups of people that care about the history. I don't think they probably know where to go to look for the history, but I would say the majority of people that don't care about the history probably have not had a mentor or even a role model that really kind of advocated history. Now, we're in a clinic at George Williams College, and Smitty Duke, now you won't remember him, but Smitty Duke was from Dallas, Texas. he was my best dance partner at all the tournaments. I mean, he was an unbelievable athlete. He could take a ball in right back and lay on the ground and set it all the way to left front. Okay. He was that strong. He was a former baseball player too. But he used to talk about, I mean, Jim Coleman talked about Smitty Duke, Mary Jo, Jane Ward, because these were people that Jane had a book out. She was on the Olympic team with Mary Jo. And I just did a deal, for the 60th anniversary with all of those women, 64 and 68, and brought them on a 90-minute show.
Yeah, we'll have to.
With my friend from Tijuana, Marco Hindes, and we did a whole thing. But let me tell you this. So we heard this history from Jim. You knew about all these people. I didn't know Smitty. But okay, so we're doing in this, and we're in the gym, and Hattie Mae Wood, I remember she drove a Stingray, a white Stingray. She drove up from Texas. And she had to have been 50 years old, 55. She's in the back of this lecture room. She raises her hand and she says, "Who is Dynamite Sue?" And for people that don't know volleyball, it's Diamatsu. But she wanted to know who Dynamite Sue was. But my point to you is the history that was taught to coaches in those clinics. It was a major thing because like Smitty was a setter also like myself. And when I moved to Texas, he and I would go to tournaments and he would come over to me and I'm getting ready and warming up. And he goes, "Okay, what's the referee doing?" I said, "I can hold it a long time." So he knew. So when he came, that's how the referee would, call you. And it was an exchange of, those are just the things. You knew everybody. So that's, pretty much, that aspect. But George Williams, Russ was in my badminton class. Russ Rose.
His curly hair, wasn't he adorable? Russ Rose.
You know what he said? He said in Art of Coaching Clinic, because I did him for 13 years in Texas, he would say, "Oh yeah, Ruth, I got an A in that class." I said, "Whatever you say, Russ." Okay, so that's George Williams.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't know for a while the significance, but when I first started attending and getting to know some of those folks, but just the wealth of knowledge and then how it played out in the college ranks or in programs, were a lot of folks connected with George Williams.
Well,
college,
and the deal is, so Kenneth Allen, was his men's, and it was actually, it's funny, as AAU started in Chicago. It was the Sears AAU tournament because I did, All-American selection. Hey, when you were with Jim as part of what he did, you volunteered for everything. Right. And you know what? Everybody always says, "Well, Ruth, what did you get paid, for those, 18 years you spent with the U.S. national team?" And I go,
"Yeah, you got maybe a sandwich and some chips." Maybe.
But it's interesting to meet that. So then I went on and tried out for the national team, made the national team. And Moo Park was the coach at the time. He's from South Korea and he coached the Renegades. And Renegades and the Shamrocks were the two biggest clubs in Los Angeles. And actually Flo wasn't even playing at that time when I was starting. And then I met Mary Jo Maryland. And then, guess what? I worked for Northwestern Mutual Life Insurance as a recruiter and as the executive secretary to the president of Northwestern Mutual. And I was the only woman in Chicago that chauffeured him around.
Oh, dear.
During my, you got to work, right? You got to work jobs.
Oh, dear. Ruth.
So off to Houston I went.
Yes. Okay. And Houston in Texas, you created a lot of things there. I remember your teams there. I remember, what was it? Flo and Rita and Rose.
Right.
And there's one, Cheryl Moore.
Cheryl Moore played. She was from Miami. Now, see, there are two Cheryl Moores. There's one that played on the 80 team that, we're boycott. But Cheryl Moore was a black athlete, 6'1", that was from Miami Springs, Florida.
Okay.
I recruited her. She was offered a full basketball scholarship at Delta State, Well, Delta State, you remember, was huge in basketball. And that was during the AIAW,
Sure.
Athletic Association for Intercollegiate Athletics for Women, which we basically, all us women, Joan Joyce, I used to do clinics with Dr.
You're kidding.
Joan Joyce, George Lehman. Hey, and it's funny is I did soccer clinics with Pele because he was with Dr. Pepper because I had to teach soccer in, college. No, we did and we toured all over the place, but everybody knew everybody. I knew Patrick when she was first starting coaching, because you shared that information. But Cheryl Moore, she's 6'1". Rose was 6'2". She's a basketball and track athlete out of Texas, probably the most recruited athlete. They both came together. One was 6'1", one was 6'2". And during that time, we had fun coaching.
Yeah.
I'll never forget that I changed their jerseys and the team kept serving Rose, and Rose was my best passer, and they thought that was Cheryl.
Okay. You're one of those that use the rules or the lack thereof to strategize to make it better.
Just as long as you turn in your lineup with the right numbers, it really didn't even matter, at that particular time.
It was.
Yeah. So then I spent 8 years there, actually, 1 year with Martha Hawthorne, and I was playing on the national team at the same time.
Yeah.
With Flo Hyman. Who, for those people that don't know Flo Hyman, you go to her website, flohyman.com. I keep that up. And Flo Hyman Collegiate Cup is named after her at University of Houston. Yeah. And she was playing, and I was playing at the same time and coaching her. And she would have to call me Miss Nelson. Okay. During those days, it was Miss Nelson, right? Nowadays they'll call you whatever. And she never forgave me because she got a C in my volleyball coaching class.
Okay.
And she said the only reason she got a C is because she got writer's cramp because she said the test was too long. Because let me tell you though, in 16 years of collegiate coaching, I never was full-time coach.
You're kidding me. Yeah. You were in that time.
Oh, yeah. I taught all my classes, tennis class and volleyball, supervised student teachers, 6 of them usually, coached women's tennis at Houston and volleyball, and did all of that and did not have an assistant coach.
No, I know. Yeah. I remember I was a little after that, but I was a teacher and a coach at a university level.
Let me tell you though, the nicest thing about it, and I was talking to Candace Motz, one of our friends who you've interviewed, at NIA, and I told her the other day she was sandbagging. They just won the Crossroads again.
Oh, they did.
Yeah. And so I said to her the other day, and I said, Candace, you finally going to get out of teaching? Because they said next spring she's not going to have to teach anymore. But you know what? The night before the tournaments, because we ran, UCLA came in, and we played on the floor at Houston was like your kitchen tile floor. Like in the cafeteria. We played on that, and then the reverse was tartan. Okay, we were in 8 years, I never had a major injury.
I had that Omaha too.
One kid come down on the standard and did her knee, but outside that, we never did it. But we jumped in the pool all the time. Let me tell you the story. So they came in, and the night before, I had all my classes learned how to score. I had like 10 tables, right? So I used my classes. So Candace taught this fall, and she says, Ruth, that was the greatest thing. I got to utilize the classes to have experience. And I said, hey, that was one advantage of teaching classes. Yeah. But yes, Houston, and probably the main emphasis in, when I was doing my student teaching, John F. Kennedy Senior High School in Denver, I had a black supervising teacher. And, there were many black physical education teachers, and I hadn't met Flo, remember, I'm still in the student teaching. And, you're not, my mother always believed, it doesn't matter race, religion, creed, political, it doesn't matter. You treat everybody the exact. So you're always brought up with good foundation of beliefs.
Yeah. Right.
And, so after, that, and I learned, and I'll never forget what she said. And I've tried to find her, and I couldn't even find her. I wanted to thank her for everything that she did, because she said, while you're playing with your dolls I'll never forget this. We're all out running, chasing. And I never, ever forgot all what I learned from her. And then when I met Flo, but when George Williams, I had black athletes there that, but I was struggling because I was only 21 years old. And, all of them liked to coach before me. How many coaches that are out there that would listen to this, you go in and, somebody before you, they either liked them or they didn't like them. And, you have the advantage if they didn't like them because they'll like you for a while until you make them work hard. And then they probably won't like you either, right?
Which I heard you did pretty often, is made people work pretty hard, Ruth.
Oh, no, I can't. I don't remember, but I do remember that we never had any rules about how many hours we could train.
Yeah, that was another thing, right? Or how many competitions you could play.
But at Houston, Flo, and I played with her, and I took I was on a mission, and that's what you mentioned my LVC, my Louisiana Volleyball Club. That was a nonprofit that Flo and I were going to do when she came back from Japan.
Yeah.
And I
can remember where I was when I got the bad news. I remember.
2:00 in the morning, Rose called me from Japan and said, sit down. And I said, what? She goes, Flo's gone. And I said, what do you mean she's gone? She said, they've taken her to the hospital. She's gone.
Yeah.
Passed away. But Flo remember, I taught her how to water ski, her and her boyfriend. And we went on double dates together. We played on the national team together. And then she came and played for me. And one of the things that I was always criticized for is because I had her set for me.
Oh, I didn't even, I did not know that.
Oh, no, she's
6'5" and an afro. That was another 5 inches.
Well, every time she did this and the ball went over, she got called illegal because So everybody criticized. But then I trained everybody. I ran a 6'3", a 6'4". I ran 3-person, 4-person, but anyhow, Flo, because I had that burning desire that I saw what was happening to minority athletes. And I said, hey, I know what it's like to be poor, but I don't know what it's like to be Black. Mm-hmm. And I said, if there's anything I can do to help the minority athlete come to a level of being at their highest peak and having satisfaction of getting a degree. And then, so Flo was my first Black athlete. Then, Rose came and Cheryl came. Rita came for a little while. She came and then went on to the national league. The year that we beat UCLA and Austin, Texas, that next year, I would have had Flo, Rita, Rose, and Cheryl. And the 2 years before that, we were 30 in the country. Uh-huh. But they went on to the national team, Rita and Flo.
So that national team would have been the 80 team,
yes,
right?
75, yeah. See, I was playing on, I played on that national team, and then I quit. And listen to this. I quit because I didn't think Ari was giving me a good enough chance to play. Okay. So I quit. And 3 months later, I became his assistant coach.
Yeah. Well,
because you know what? The worst thing is you don't ever make a decision to quit anything if you're injured. I had hurt my foot in Germany. One of the players, I went in to do extra practice and I had barefoot and they came down, stepped on my foot and broke my little toe. And if you've ever tried to move with
that little toe just causes all kinds of problems.
So my passion for the minority athlete started really in, the early 60s with my supervising teacher. And never to this day have I stopped not making that a priority.
Yeah. I think you have a lot of women that are very thankful for your work to create that opportunity, to give them the chances that they had. And there's a lot of coaches and professionals and women that are doing very well still today. I see on social media where they have things going on and very good things. So good job, Ruth.
Well, it's been a priority because I can tell you that I had really, Janice, I think there are people that are builders and then there are creators. And Andy Banikowski was a builder. Russ Rose was a builder. John Cook was a builder. I would almost have to say Marilyn, myself, and we were and Mary Jo. We love to create. And, from George Williams to Houston, then to LSU, then to Iowa. It was like I felt like I had done everything I could do at Houston. And I can tell you that I had a great Cedric Dempsey, who used to be the president of NCAA. He actually was my athletic director for a short period of time. He also was the athletic director at University Pacific for Terry Leskovich. And I think that what happens is you think of this. Why do you choose to go somewhere you either want to develop? And I don't think I've really finished it to see the real end result. I've seen it develop, grow, and then let somebody else continue. And it's like Kathy DeBoer always says, well, Ruth, you're 10 years ahead of your time. And I said, oh, I know that.
That's true. That's true.
But you know what, though, Janice, I think the thing is this. She asked me a question, the former, AVCA president, and for a long time, for many of you that might not know, she asked me a question during COVID, and she goes, Ruth, how are you adapting to COVID? I said, Kathy, I've been doing Skype training for 15 years. She goes, on Skype? And I go, oh, yeah, I got kids in Wichita Falls. I've been doing that. She goes, but how about the athletes? And I said, I match up better with these athletes because I get bored easy. You would never catch me doing the same drill. Russ told me one time, he went to a gym and they did the drill for an hour. And I said, you would never. Now, it might include some of those same skills during that, hour session, but not like one time, Ari, we had a drill, and some coaches might think this is a great drill. Well, I probably, I accredit, Jim Coleman, Bertha Lucas, Mary Jo Marilyn, Ari. I mean, all of those people helped mentor me and role model me. But we used to do a drill. You had to do 100 passes, okay? 100 passes, okay? And one player, this is in Pasadena, Texas, one player would let it drop all the time.
So now, time out, because I was a disciple of Ari's, because I had his big book, his Bible or whatever.
Yes, absolutely.
And I just love, because of the success of that program, the 80 number one ranked team in the world. And then we boycott and such a terrible thing for those women. But how did they do the 100 passes?
Okay. You got servers over there, you got passers, okay? We would rotate, a certain amount of, every 6-10 rotations. I can't even remember now because it went on for 3 hours. I can't remember the exact rotation, okay? But you can't let a ball drop.
Yeah, no.
You got to do 100. Now, you might not get 100 exactly to there, but you didn't let a ball drop. And it was the same person every time. One night, I'll never forget, we did 3 hours for 100 passes. Yeah. And I heard somebody say the other day, we're going to do. I said, let me tell you what I've learned in teaching, because my background is teaching. And I said, don't call me a coach, because anybody puts a stamp on the back of their shirt. And I said, don't ever give me a shirt that has coach on the back. I had to go through 3.5 years of undergraduate school, studying anatomy, physiology, exercise physiology, master's degree in that. And I said, FIVB, certification and all that. And I said, the most important thing in teaching is that you minimize the least amount in quantity and get good quality.
Quality, yeah.
So if you're dealing with 5-year-olds, which I deal with, 60%
we'll talk about
of my time, I want one good pass. Okay. Then as a group, I want 3 good passes all together. Then I want 1 good pass from everybody. Then I want 5 good passes with everybody. And then I want 3 good passes from each of you. So when somebody says, Ruth, old school, you're old school. And I said, old school ideas make new school methods. That's my point. And so my point is that how in anything you do, what's the most important thing? This age group.
Yeah. Let's talk about that. So the age group, we're talking 10 and under.
Yeah. 10 and under. Okay. So, you're going to really, 1995, I said, 1995, I said, okay, I'm back in Dallas. I'm finished with Special Olympics. I'm coming to Dallas. And I go, what's happened? The school systems are having to share buses because they don't have enough money to bus. And teams from Plano East and Plano West have to get on the bus together and travel. And I said, okay, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to have parents and kids work together, because I guarantee they're not spending 1 hour a week with their kid. If they are, it might be studying. It definitely probably not at the dinner table without, and we're talking 1995. And I said, let's come up with something. And that's when I came up with, first, I started calling it Volley Kids. And then I did Volley Tots, TOTZ, way before the 2003 AVCA convention. And I came up with Bring Your Own Parent, because I felt like it was important for a kid to come on the court, to be very focused. The parent would learn at the same time. The parent is not coaching. If I have something I want the parent to do, I'll say, Janice, can you show your mom how we toss the ball? You go over and you show.
That's the best way. Anytime you have to teach anything, my best players worked my camps. When they had to teach something, that it's a miracle how well it gets understood. Yeah.
Well, and I think that what you do is you have to decide. When I went to LSU, I had committed. I went to a regional tournament over there, and the AD walked up to me and said, Ruth, how's the court set up? And I said, the courts aren't the right size. This is 1980, after the 80 Olympics. And she goes,
wait a minute. What?
They were 30 by 60, and they weren't meters. I said, and the net's wrong. And also the 10-foot line is not 10 foot. It's 3 meters. It's 9 foot, 10 inches. It's 59 by 29.6. And she goes, oh my God, Ruth, what can we do? And I just walked in and I saw it wasn't correct, because I could tell you got, inches over here. She says, well, what can we do? And I said, I can put up 2 courts in 6 minutes. She goes, what do you mean? I said, oh, my kids are used to doing that. They get a pencil, they put the tape on it, they roll it out, get your, socks on and roll it down. 6 minutes, we had 2 courts already done. She came up after, she says, I'd like to hire you as the new head coach. And I said, you got a head coach, and that's how that started.
That's how. Okay.
And I came back and they interviewed me, and I committed. Meanwhile, Ohio State, Illinois, and Texas called. And I said, I already committed. And Janice, if you asked me if I wanted to do it all over, and I think this is a lesson for all coaches out there, I would have gone with Carol Kars, the late Carol Kars, because she would have been a great mentor. Because there's no way that any coach that's been coaching can't have a mentor or a role model that can help them through tough times. It's impossible. It's impossible.
Tell folks who she was, and just briefly a little bit of her.
Carol Kars was I was the AIW chairperson for national championships for 2 years, not because I wanted to, but my AD says, Ruth, you got to get involved. You got to get involved, and you got to be on a committee. I go, I don't care about being on a committee. I just want to win. That's what I said. I'll never forget. She goes, you need to know what's going on. So I became Carol Kars was my technical expert, and she was the volleyball coach at first, and then she became the assistant AD at University of Illinois. Okay. Where my keeper was Chris Ockenare. She had great coaches there. And she was my commissioner, and she had to room. I had to room with her. I asked my AD, I'm not rooming with somebody old. I'm 23 years old. And that I learned so much that one weekend. And then Donna Lopiano, who was remember, she was the athletic director at University of Texas, and changed the way they raise money. She was my commissioner. So I had all these people that are physical educators, right? Dr. Donna Lopiano, Dr. Carol Kars, all of those people. But she basically said, Ruth, you've got to start and I wish I would have gone, because a lot of times people say I wouldn't change it. Oh, yes, I had to change it. I'd have gone to her. If I had a choice now to go do anything in coaching, I would make sure that I know the athletic director, not the assistant athletic director, not the SWA. I want to know who, and I want to know who the football coach is, and I want to know who the basketball coach is.
Good advice. Good advice.
I mean, you can't just go, because guess what? You better make sure they're supporting what you're doing. And the other thing I would say is make sure you get at least a 5-year contract. Don't do this at will business. But, she was, and I went to LSU, and it was, we played 23 of the top 24 teams in the country in 4 years. We started Tiger Vision. Nobody had television. We had Tiger Vision. And it was put on, and all the teams that came in, I brought in Hawaii, I brought in Japan, I brought UCLA, USC, Hawaii, BYU, Penn State, everybody on guarantee. When I was at the Hawaii Final Four, I was sitting in the corner in the bar, and everybody says, if you want money and a guarantee, Ruth's in the corner. She's not serving drinks.
That's when Russ won, right?
She's giving out money. and basically, we were so innovative at LSU. Yeah. But I wasn't hired. I was hired by one athletic director. New athletic director came in. He fired 17 of us.
Yeah.
He said, Ruth, you know what? You need to go coach the national team. I go, okay.
Okay. All right.
So, but you are innovative. We did the showcases. We started all the festivals. We did, I had my Ruth Nelson side-out volleyball shoe, which people don't even realize the first person had a volleyball shoe on the market. It was the NAIA official shoe.
You're kidding me. See, I don't remember that. I don't remember that. But so Ruth, the history of all this, and thanks for sharing everything, because it is so much. And I think a lot of folks get to see you doing your certification programs or your BYOP programs. And I was thinking about this. So they're real important. Like, our sport right now is just growing like gangbusters. And there are coaches sometimes that maybe are not teachers or have the background that a lot of folks had as a physical education person. Your work and what you've laid out for folks, I think, is really valuable. I think it's a real special program. I read some things that you talked about in terms of, movement, jumping, these kinds of things for young girls. I just remember being so important that they learn how to run, walk, slide, jump. So if you could maybe bring a little bit of that to this show.
I would probably say that more people in the world know more about BYOP than people in the United States. And the reason why I've got I did a clinic in Egypt in 1989, and I had 18 guys that were there, not girls, but guys, coaches. We trained on the dirt outside. Yeah. And those 18 coaches are now out coaching all over the world. And one of my friends who's a FIVB, he shows videos of what we're doing. So basically, my thought was, and I mentioned it briefly, is I've developed, certification programs. I did one in the water because I trained in the water called Nelson Aquatic Resistance Training. I certified coaches there too, because I felt it was important on the rehab side. And it was also I have someone who did a master's thesis on it increases your jump, doing water and land training, and water was top, and then land. And so I thought, okay, why don't I do a certification in the sense of so many coaches? So I'd already started the BYOP program, which is Bring Your Own Parent. And it's been, since 2013, I trademarked it in all youth sports, not just volleyball. And I did it in volleyball specific. And I have an educational piece, which was, part of a DVD, which was put out by Championship Productions. And, and I felt like that was important. Well, guess what, Janice? You're not going to believe this. A lot of coaches don't want the parents on the court, and they don't want them in the gym. And you know what? And let me say this. A lot of parents that didn't come to my BYOP didn't do it because they didn't want to. It was because they were busy with work and whatever. And I feel, and when I started that program, I said, I believe you can take 1 hour a week to let your kid do something and you learn at the same time. It's like, Ryan Mitchell, he's somebody I mentored for 24 years. He said, Ruth, you're educating the future of parents. Those are the future coaches that might coach 12 and under. So I said, okay, what am I going to do? I've got people that are interested, and this is 25 years now I've spent at this age level. I said, why isn't it someone at my experience? Why aren't more people loving little kids? And, you got to be energetic. You've got to be prepared for anything. And a kid,
you do. It's a ton of fun, though, right? I mean, good gosh.
So much fun. And you have to be quick. It's like a kid said the other day, well, Coach Ruth, you know what? This is what we learned at the other clinic. I said, well, you know what's really important? You should continue at that clinic. And then when you decide you want to learn more, come back to me. So it's a question of how do you deal with younger kids? So I said, okay, I'm going to start another certification. So BYOP, you have BYOP Edmond, Oklahoma. You have BYOP Chicago. So you have your own program. It's a licensing. And I said, okay, what about those coaches that are teachers, parents, youth coaches, recreational leaders, and recreational coaches? What about them that just want to learn about how to train kids and teach kids that are basically 10 and under? So I said, I'm going to start Go Kids Youth Sports Skills Trainer. So you get a certification as a skills trainer. It's not a program. Yeah, BYOP is a program, and you have your own program.
Okay, sure. Okay, all right.
This over here. So in the last 2 years, I've certified 28 coaches. Okay. This last summer, I went to Husky Volleyball Club on the East Coast. Yeah. And I have 7. And the club director, Ryan, and he'll die when he listens to this. He said, Ruth, you know what? He called me and he wanted to do BYOP. And I said, no. I said, this is what you need to do. Go to get certified and Go Kids first. See what you think about it. See that, because not everybody's suited for younger kids. I mean, I know it for a fact. And he said, well, I saw you in Omaha. And he said, I realized I didn't know as much about training young kids as I thought. And so I came up and did for 6 of his coaches in his club. But the whole idea was I started this last summer, Project Get Certified.
Yeah. Okay.
I want to do 100 coaches by 2030. Mm-hmm. And the reason why that people need to look at it is because I have 2 online courses that's powered by Art of Coaching. One of them is BYOP 101, and it's titled that because I started it with the 4 basic fundamental skills. Because I look at this, there's a recreational parent. They don't know anything about skills. So I said, you know what? They go watch that. Cheap, $9.99. You get to watch it forever. And then I came up with a home training program series, and everybody said, oh, Ruth, that's the best ever. Kids can go home and they can do this. They got charts. They can print this. They can do their, week 1, 7. And it's divided into 2 major things: fundamental skills of volleyball and physical elements of performance, which includes jump roping, skipping, hopping, movement skills. Then you go to lift for serving, not toss for serving, contact for this, using puffers, which are squeezy balls, using all different kinds of things that kids can do at home. And everybody said, oh, Ruth, that was fan. You did that just during COVID. I said, no. I started before. Because, Janice, you know what happens? You get done with the session, and what's the first thing any kid says? Coach, what can I do outside of practice that will help me get better? Yeah. So I developed that. So Go Kids basically is to help people understand teaching kids you don't have to know 5,000 different cue words.
No, right. Okay. I think it's great. I really do. I think what you've put together is extremely valuable. And for those that are looking for something and you want to give your son, your daughter an opportunity.
You know what, Janice, I would say this. I think the hardest thing when you're young, and I can look back when I was young, and what is it that you think you know everything? But You don't. And you know what? So most people say to me, and they'll say to you, "Oh, Ruth, you've forgotten more than what most people will learn." And it's only because of who you've been exposed to. And now they think, "Oh, I'm going on the internet. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that drill." Well, you know what?
Yeah. Yeah.
Design your own drill, organize your own drill, execute your own drill, and do what best works for you. Mm-hmm. Don't do what somebody. I'm going to tell you what John Cook was interviewed by Art of Coaching, and this is a very, very important interview, and I posted it.
Yeah.
They said to him, and Don Patterson interviewed him, and it was written. It wasn't a live video. And he said, one of the most things he says, people a lot of times say, "Oh, I'm old school," and he goes, "Listen, when players come to Nebraska, I'm going to tell them where to put their feet and what to do with their body." He said, "You cannot continue to play 6-on-6 the entire practice and expect kids to increase their skill." And then he said, "Every junior coach should be getting certified." And I texted him and I said, "Oh, I'm doing it. I did 14 people, but that's 10 and under, but my point is that there's only so many efficient ways to do things.
Exactly. Yes.
We did swing blocking in 1972 and quit doing it. And, Russ, he's traditional. John's swing. I said, "Russ, what are you doing? Why are you doing?" He says, "You ever try to change somebody after 7 years of doing it?" So my question then to you, Janice, is then how important is training kids in basic movement skills and coordination and just having few key words: wrist, thumbs, hands. What else do I need to say?
Yeah. That probably one of the things from Pat Sullivan and my stuff at the University of Nebraska is that that's what she used. That's what we had. And I was surprised, even with the college age kid, where we were teaching them how to run efficiently, how to move efficiently, how to do some of the things, because they didn't have those basic things. And I would spend time on that. And for that reason, we got to be very good at movement, ball control, don't create a lot of errors. So in the game of volleyball, if you make fewer errors than your opponent, chances are you're going to do pretty well. Is there anything that you can think of, maybe your proudest moment ever? And I know, God, you've had a lot of them. But like when that pops in your head, is there anything that just goes, doop, pops in there and goes, "Yeah, this is something I'd like to mention"?
Well, when you've played at the highest level and then you've coached, one of my goals was to play in Wimbledon, and I didn't do that. Another goal was to play on the Olympic team. I didn't do that, but I played on the national team. Then I coached as an assistant to Ari. And I think having those kind of players, most people don't even think of 5-year-olds. So when I think that I've seen a 5-year-old do something that, and this is at the same level, when they do something like flow, learning to play defense better, when they click, they see it, that is the most unbelievable feeling that I see, that they are so excited. However, this generation, you must figure out a way to get them to be successful ASAP.
Yeah. Not real tolerant on time.
Whatever that is, and it's immediate feedback. So when you say innovation, let me just say this. Innovation isn't creating things that others aren't doing. Innovation is creating something that actually is effective in teaching so that athlete can improve the quickest, so they have success in their being positive. So if I can't teach all of those 5-year-olds how to do all the skills, why would I think that a 5 or 6-year-old isn't going to not enjoy the sport? They've got to learn the skills, but they've got to understand the movement patterns. And the last story I give you this is of a 6-year-old jumping rope. And the mom said when her daughter could jump the rope, because the parents will send me a video and they say, Ruth, they'll say, send this to Coach Ruth. She needs to see it because she'll tell me what I need to do to be able to do it better. And the mom said when she jumped rope, it was just like the kid had won a gold medal.
Yeah. Yeah. Accomplishment. Work hard for something, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. That is pretty sweet, Ruth. I like that. All right. One last thing. If you had a wand, a magic wand, and you could wave that little thing and make some change in either the sport of volleyball or in your life or in coaching, what would you take that wand and do?
I think we have to figure out, and actually, I'd gotten an email from John Sparrow, and he has a 9-year-old daughter. And the comment that he made, and it's the reason why I started my programs, is you have to figure a way to engage and educate parents. And if you do that, then there's a better sense. Okay, it works 2 ways. One, it helps them become better sport parents, but it also, in a way, kind of forces coaches to stay on top of their own game. And they need to become, you must always be looking to get better. I get better all the time. Every day I'm in training. You must be quick. You don't have, everybody always says I'm sarcastic, but it's kind of a dry sense of humor, and it is what it is. But I think that as I get to know someone, it's never ever done in a way to be degrading. Yeah. It's more of when the kid asks me after I try to help them, and they turn to me and they go, Coach Ruth, are you sure you read the book right? And I said, Sarah, I wrote the book.
Yeah. Oh, aren't they great?
Absolutely. That's exactly. But I'm thankful for this part of the journey to share, and also to thank all of those mentors and role model. My first role model was Tom Landry Jr. of the Dallas Cowboys. His son and Tom Landry, I was in business with in the prepaid phone card business. Yeah, right. And I remember this. He was my first role model. And a lot of people, and during that time, Billie Jean King too, but classiness, the way he handled the players, the way, the professional. And I think that you always learn by surround yourself, not with just people that have been the NCAA or the high school champ. There's so many people that are older, and now I fit into that category along with you. That you can learn from. Yeah. I mean, we've been through this. Why would anybody not want to, unless you want to experience everything, and good luck on that, because you're going to need to be 150 years old in order to experience all these things. But I just appreciate the fact is that you and I had a chance to re-talk this.
Yeah, Ruth, thank you. It's just been fun. There's so much that you bring, and to volleyball, to teaching of the game, just the excitement of it. It just seems to stay with you all the time. And it's fun. Volleyball has always been something that I'm like, you got to have fun. And I still do as I watch today. Like you said, little kids, when they figure something out, there's nothing better. Or even the older kids when they figure something out. And it's just really great. I thank you for being on today. You're a real special gal.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you for listening. Please share your feedback with us at side-out.org.